What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video, and today we are going to be finishing our series of showcases spotlighting the newest Boss Syndrome Volume 2 banner content as we take a look at none other than the boss himself, the King of Southtown, Geese Howard. But before we get into all of that and more, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe, and let's go ahead and jump into it. And as always here on the channel, we are going to be starting out with the typing and the leadership skill. So the typing for Geese Howard is going to be green attack, which is very good. He is going to be able to slot in with a great amount of teams. However, being the fact that he is a boss syndrome as well as a boss fighter with a amazing leadership skill of his own, typically with boss syndrome Geese Howard, you are probably going to be slotting him in with a boss team, or he is going to be the leader himself, because that leadership skill, man, that leadership skill, it is going to increase attack type fighters' attack by 45% and their power charge rate by 20%. This is a phenomenal leadership skill and sets Geese Howard apart from the rest of the pack, making him one of the best leaders in the game. You can slot him in with some of the most devastating characters in the King of Fighters All-Star, and this character is going to only make them perform just that much better. We've talked about these types of leaderships in the past as being some of the best possible that you can have, and being the fact that it is carried by one of the biggest damage dealers in the game currently, this is going to be a huge boon, and this is going to make this character just that much better across all PVE modes. Now when we go ahead and we move into his cores, with his cores he is going to have the same generous 30% power charge rate increase, so he is going to do just the same on power charge rate as his counterpart Krizalid. And as you can see with this kit, as we go through here, this character isn't trying to do anything flashy. He is just there to stop the clock and lay on as much damage as humanly possible. When you get into his exclusive cores, you are going to see he has the leader of the Howard connection. This is going to give him a 40% chance to apply fear to the target for 3 seconds upon landing an active skill on a cooldown of 10 seconds, and increases active skill damage by 50% when attacking enemies affected by shock or darkness. So breaking this down, those of you who are not aware, fear is a new CC effect that is akin to a stun, so you'll be able to see it. There is a cool little animation that pops up whenever he uses this, and you'll be able to tell when that fear is applied. This is very good for him in a lot of different ways, particularly in PvP, but in PvE it also comes up quite a bit against bosses who are susceptible. So this is a very nice core overall. The fact that he increases his active skill damage by 50% when attacking enemies affected by shock or darkness is also phenomenal for the same core, because that whopping 50% increase is quite a bit. Moving on now to the exclusive core of Southtown's Nightmare. This is going to have a 50% chance to reset all of his blast active skill cooldowns upon landing Jaken on a cooldown of 20 seconds. And then, as we talked about before in the Krizalid review, he does also have the Boss Syndrome Volume 2 exclusives of decreasing all enemies' power by 1% every 0.3 seconds in guard stance, and the PvP exclusive of gaining super armor for 2 seconds when his accumulated attack received, guard included, reaches 5 times on a cooldown of 20 seconds. So that 50% chance to reset his blast active skills with his S2 is wonderful. This is something that makes this character just that much more devastating, because he has 2 blast active skills of his 3 skills, and basically what you can do is you can reset 2 of your 3 skills, and this is going to go a long way when coupled with that 30% power gain that he has on his cores, and make him have the ability to fire off his finishers just that much quicker. This character is very, very quick and very devastating, and this is one of the reasons why. As far as the Boss Syndrome exclusive cores, we've already talked about these. When it comes to decreasing all enemies' power by 1%, this is mainly going to be a PvP core, and of course PvP is going to be another place where this character shines, but you would be hard pressed to find a place in this game where this character isn't very great. So Other than that, you also have that exclusive core for PvP, where he gains super armor for 2 seconds when his accumulated attack received, guard included, reaches 5 times. Basically, for those of you who are confused by that, if he gets comboed more than 5 times, then he is going to gain super armor to try and break that juggle or break that combo so that he can save himself. So very, very good in PvP. Again, this character is very good for that mode, but again, he's going to be good pretty much anywhere. So moving on to the skills. And of course, leading off, because he is a Boss Syndrome character, Boss Syndrome Geese Howard is going to have that extended duration on his Awakening mode. So one of the key reasons why Boss Syndrome characters are so good is because they have that extra long rotation for their Awakening in PvE. So another big, big boon for him, but he shares this in common, of course, with all of the other Boss Syndrome characters. Getting into his actual skills, you have his S1, which is his Reppuken. It is going to decrease damage received by 75% for 4 seconds, as well as dropping lightning on the target upon a successful attack. This increases active skill cooldowns by 2 seconds, and deals shock damage equal to 30% of attack every 1 second for 7 seconds. So lightning is a very devastating tier 2 dot, and basically it is going to give you all of the benefits of shock damage, but also going to increase the active skill cooldowns by 2 seconds of the opponent. This is really something that's only going to come up in PvP, but really this is going to be a huge thing for him there, so definitely something to keep in mind. Lightning in and of itself, as far as the tier 2 dots, tends to be one of the most devastating, so very cool that he has that on his kit. And again, if you haven't noticed, the theme with this character, beyond the fact that he is amazing in PvE, this character is a monster for PvP. Now moving on to his S2, this is going to be the skill that has the ability to reset his blast actives. This is going to give him hyper armor for 3 seconds, with a 70% chance to ignore the target's guard upon landing a successful attack, and this can be used while being attacked, so it is an interrupt. So this is going to be your guard break. It is a 70% guard break, so pretty darn good overall. And when you take a look at this character, this is going to also be pretty devastating because he is going to have that hyper armor on there as well. So basically, he's going to be able to fire this off, which this tends to be one of his best skills for grouping and mobbing. He's going to be able to fire this off, get himself that damage immunity for 3 seconds. He's going to break through guard more than likely, and he's also going to have reset the active skill cooldowns on his S1 and his S3, all in the same skill. Very, very powerful. Next up, finally, on his S3, we are going to have increased this attack by 30% for 7 seconds, and applies Blackout for 7 seconds to the target upon landing a skill. For those of you who are unaware of what Blackout does, it is going to deal darkness damage equal to 30% of attack every 1 second, and decrease power by 2%. So you guys can notice a theme with this character. If you couple these things along with that exclusive core for the Boss Syndrome Volume 2 characters, he very much so likes to deny you your power charge. So this character is phenomenal in general in PvP, PvE, very, very strong. But when it comes to the rest of his kit, he is going to have a ton of perks to him for PvE, not just for PvP, and overall, there isn't really a place that you could really poke holes in his game. He's just going to be a character that is going to be very, very strong and very, very solid across most any mode. And then finally here, we do have a little bit more to talk about because his finishers do have effects. So starting off here, Raging Storm of Nightmare, which is his core finisher, is going to increase the target's damage received by 20% for 10 seconds upon landing a skill. So this is going to give him just that much more damage. So basically with this one, you can spam this finisher around kind of and just throw it out there in the middle of a rotation because it is a very quick animation. And then once he is done with that, you can basically do that extra 20% of your damage to your opponent. So very cool that he has this on that finisher, particularly because, again, like I mentioned, it is very short. Now when we take a look at his other finisher here. This one is also going to have an effect, and this is going to be his Rashomon EX, which is his best finisher. This is a 10-second long animation 3PG, so as you can see here, it is going to increase his critical rate by 10% for 10 seconds when Rashomon EX finishes hitting. So this card here, while this finisher isn't necessarily the best for shredding things because it doesn't have a ton of hits, it is a phenomenal finisher in general and one of the best parts of his kit, because that 10-second long animation, coupled with the fact that you're also going to increase your critical rate by 10% for 10 seconds along with it, makes this one of the better finisher cards in the game, in my opinion, just all things considered. So that is pretty much what we're looking at there. Now, as far as his stones are concerned, because there's actually a little bit to talk about here, and I am going to spend a little bit of time on this for you guys because I want to point a few things out about these stones. Now, part of the reason why I had waited on Geese Howard and saved him for last is because of these stones, because there were a few things that I have been thoroughly testing, and as you may notice, I do not have all Volume 2 stones on my Geese Howard, so thank you to my Boss Syndrome Orochi for sacrificing his stones to Geese, because this man makes great use of these. So I have a Volume 1 stone on my Geese Howard, and the reason for that is because it increases Boss Syndrome Fighter's blast skill damage by 15%. So this is a big difference for him, considering the fact that he has so many sources of blast damage on his kit, and I would highly recommend this if you were trying to get the maximum amount of damage out of your Geese in PvE. I have noticed a marked major difference with this, and I will point out in some of this footage today some of the key differences from switching over to these, because while I was not able to do side-by-side comparison footage of these two different stones for the Volume 1 and the Volume 2 on this character to show you guys, I have been thoroughly testing both, and I have a very good handle on the difference that these make, and it is pretty marked. Now, this isn't the only Volume 1 stone I have on him, and in case you're wondering, because I know there's a lot of controversy going on when it comes to these stones, these are not necessary for him, so if you do not have the ability to get these, don't feel too bad. Just go ahead and put the regular Volume 2 attack stones on him, and you'll do just fine. But I also have a Volume 1 stone on here for his square stone as well, and the reason for this is because this is going to increase his strike skill damage by 15%, and really the only reason I put this one on here was just to test. This one is not set in stone because he doesn't have as many sources of strike as he does blast, but so far I have been very impressed with his damage output testing this on here, so I very well might keep it. But again, you can always go with a Volume 2, and speaking of Volume 2 stones, I did keep the Hexagon Volume 2 on him as well, but that is going to be the stones. My recommendation is attack stones all the way. If you have the Volume 2 stones, go that route. If you have the ability to do so with the Circle Stone at least, I do highly recommend that one for the Volume 1, but it comes down to what you have available. So let's go ahead and take a look at the skills in action and break them down. Starting out with Geese's basic string, he is going to have a 4-hit basic string with off-the-ground capability and some pretty good overall animations for PvE in general. So being the fact that he does have off-the-ground on his basics, this is going to help him out quite a bit, specifically when it comes to his mobbing capabilities. And when we get to that point, we are going to talk about it, but his mobbing prowess is pretty much on par with some of the best characters in the entire game, but a very good basic string overall. Now, when it comes to his S1, it is a very fast full screen projectile, and it also, of course, has off the ground, but it does have very poor XY, so keep that in mind. On his S2, this is probably my favorite skill of his because it has amazing grouping potential, and the XY on it is awesome, as well as having that really fast animation time on it, so a great skill for PvE. Then when it comes to his S3, this may be his most kind of hit or miss skill because it is a very fast projectile with amazing XY. It's going to have some great crowd control, being that it can group everyone around it, and it almost as full screen, but not quite. The biggest issue with it is it can feel sticky at times and leave him a little prone to getting hit, so keep that in mind because he will hang in the air a little. Now, when it comes to his core finisher, the biggest thing about this guy is it does have a pretty quick animation on it and a very short range, so you're going to have to be very careful with that, but it has a ton of hits, so that's going to be very good for your shield shred and things like guild raid and so on. And then finally, with his card finisher, there's not much to be said about it other than the fact that it is great. It is going to have a 10-second long animation, and it is going to be full screen. It's almost impossible to miss with. So overall, a fantastic kit. This character overall has a phenomenal overall breakdown for his skills, and I would say that as far as his combo potential, his mobbing potential, his bossing potential, because of all these off the grounds and all these little perks in his kit, it more than makes up for the little idiosyncrasies and quirks he has. But let's go ahead and take a look at how he performs in mobbing and regular bossing, because it is pretty darn impressive overall. Now, as you can see here from this footage, and this is where I'm going to point something out. So in this particular footage, I had not put those Volume 1 stones on this character yet, so you'll be able to tell that in certain instances, he isn't one-tapping these mobs and these goons, but after I put those stones on him in subsequent testing, he has easily been able to one-tap these. Another nice perk because of doing this, he is also able to go into this Reviving Hells dungeon stage and start and finish it. So the overall difference with his stones being changed to the Volume 1 stones, particularly as I had mentioned with that circle stone, is mainly seen in this type of footage, because before I was not able to start and finish a Reviving Hells dungeon mode with him, but after doing so, as I had mentioned, I am easily able to do so with a good 6-7 seconds left on his timer. So it has made a major difference, and this has been the easiest way to test to see the difference that it did make, and it was pretty marked, as I mentioned. But overall, when it comes to him, as we had mentioned with the skill breakdown, being the fact that he has so many off the grounds, being the fact that he has such great XY on most of his skills, being the fact that he has such fast skill animations, he's able to spam his finishers, all of these different things make him so good in mobbing that I would say that he is going to end up being one of the premier characters for things such as time attack, which is definitely a mode that should never be discounted in its importance, especially for a free-to-play player, because free-to-play players need those extra rubies, and any character that is going to be able to make that easier for them, because time attack can be a giant pain for a lot of people in order to get those max rewards. Any character that is going to make your life easier in that mode is only going to be welcomed. So this is going to be a big help for you guys if you need additional assistance in that mode. But overall with him, I would say that while there are going to be characters out there that do this job and are better at it, I would say that he's definitely in the top percentile of characters for mobbing, just based solely upon the fact that we have already talked about all these different off the grounds and all of these different little perks, but really it just comes down to his high damage output against any of these lower tier fighters and all these lower tier mobs. So I would definitely recommend him to anyone in this capacity. I think that he is probably one of the best of the boss syndrome characters for this role, and if you try him out in these different modes, another way that I would test him is going to be against the Hall of Elements, because if you take him into the Hall of Elements, specifically during the week that I'm making this video, he is going to have his perk in that mode right now, so you'll be able to see how he performs. And as you can see from this footage, the damage output on this character, on this boss, as this is the final tier of the Hall of Elements, this is the stage 25 boss, he goes in and just manhandles it. So really, I think that if anything is going to give you a good gauge of his overall damage, it is that. So fantastic mobber, fantastic bosser. In PVAI, I've said this before, I'm going to continue to say it, PVAI is just a cakewalk, so you really don't need to worry about it, so I'm never going to spend a ton of time on PVAI in these spotlights, but really all I can say about Nightmare Geese in this capacity is that he is a monster in this mode, so if you need any help when it comes to your league or your infinite battle, really when it comes to Geese Howard, he's kind of just going to go in and bully things. There's really not a whole lot you need to know. The AI really doesn't know how to handle fast skill animations to begin with, and being the fact that his S2 is so quick, you can kind of just start up with that, catch him, and then just end the match right from that point, because there's really not a whole lot they can do. He's pretty much going to melt anything he touches, so overall I can't really say anything negative about him here. Just use him and you'll get through whatever it is you're trying to do pretty easily without much of any hassle. So moving on now to Guild Raid, because this is going to be a hot topic for this character. When it comes to Geese in Guild Raid, while he is not going to be as outright broken as his counterpart in Krizalid, Geese is a wonderful unit here. So if you are someone who's missed out on Delans with the Seven Knights collaboration, and that is something that you have regretted since then you will have your second chance at a character that will be devastating in Expert. So go ahead, pick this character up if you need the extra help. He is definitely going to be better than any other option out there, and I would say that even against a Delans he is a better option, because when it comes to this character he has many perks going on for him that Delans just doesn't, and I would say that just based upon what I have done in Guild Raid with him myself, he is going to do more damage as well pretty easily without much of any competition. So this is going to be a straight upgrade for everybody if they need the extra help. Now, it is unfortunate that Krizalid is as broken as he is in this mode and came out in the same banner, because I feel like he did steal a little bit of his shine there, because while Geese is a wonderful unit for this, he does have some downsides that are going to hold him up. Mainly is going to be due to the fact that with his finishers, without doing the core finisher, his 3PG finisher is not necessarily the best for the shield shred, so it isn't very reliable for that, and you'll therefore have to go with the core finisher, which is definitely going to be better for that role. However, being the fact that Rugal likes to move around during your animations for your finishers, it can sometimes be a little bit tough to catch him with it, so you'll have to be very wary. My recommendation to you guys is try to catch him while he's in an animation during one of his attacks, or try to corner him with it, because you want to make sure that you get that finisher on him so you get that increase to his damage received. But the problem is going to be that it is going to again have that kind of arc to it, being that it is Raging Storm, so it could potentially miss if you're not careful. Another thing about Geese in this mode you have to be wary of, but it's a small thing, is the fact that that S3 does leave him hanging in the air just a tad before you can cancel it out, so you have to be a little bit wary of when you are casting it, because for those of you who are going for those trophy runs where you're going for 800, 900, a billion damage runs, Geese is going to be your dream character based on the fact that he is able to stall for as long as he is and do as much damage as he is capable of. But you are going to have to be wary of that, because if that happens, as you know, as a player that goes for those trophy runs, that will ruin a run, so be kind of careful with it. But overall it's a small thing. But at the end of the day, thanks to the fact that his core finisher is so good on shield shred, the fact that his card finisher is going to stall the clock as well as it does, he does such good damage. Yes, there are better shield shred characters out there, so you'll probably want to complement him with a very strong shield shredder, but really all of these things are little things when it comes to his performance, because he is really, really good here. So I could not recommend him any more highly for Guild Raid. I think that he is a perfect addition to your roster and a pure upgrade over the other darkness options not named Krizalid. Now, when it comes to Immortals, with Immortals, you're basically going to notice that Geese is going to be a character that is almost future-proof. This is thanks in large part to his leadership skill being one of the best in the game. So basically, he is going to become one of those staples for this mode, where if you can run him as a leader with a competent team that will complement whatever Immortal dungeon he is in, then he is going to be a top-flight pick. And really, I do think that because of his finisher being as long as it is, and being the fact that he can spam as much as he can and do such good damage, that really if there's anywhere in the game he is going to see a ton of longevity, it is going to be here. So for those of you who are struggling with some of these Immortals, you will probably notice even at lower awakening levels that Geese is able to take you to another level when it comes to your damage output and your performance in this mode. So really I could not recommend him anymore for this, and I think that he has a huge potential for the future here. So let's go ahead and give our final thoughts and wrap this thing up. And if you guys can't tell, I love this character. This character is great and one of the better characters in the entire game at this point. I would say that as far as PVE goes, you would be hard pressed to find a better candidate for most any mode that you are going to be jumping into. Part of it has everything to do with the fact that Geese just has so many things working for him on his base kit. The fact that he has that typing, the fact that he has that leadership skill, he has that boss syndrome tag, he's a boss fighter, he has those amazing resets on his kit, he has great power charge, he has spammable finishers, a huge animation length on that card finisher, and all that damage. This character is almost the entire package when it comes to what you would want in a character in this game. And while he has some little hang-ups here and there, no pun intended, with some of his issues with canceling skills here and there and things of that nature, he really is just going to be a premier character for PvE. Even if you don't have the ability to go for these Volume 1 imprint stones like I had mentioned towards the beginning of this, really it doesn't matter because the Volume 2 stones are good enough, and really this character you can't go wrong with. So again, as I've already told you guys, if you are not going for the Volume 2 banner and you have the rubies to do so, you really do not have an excuse to skip, because it doesn't matter which one of these characters you prefer on a personal level. If you pull either of them, they are going to be a huge benefit to your account. And really, without knowing what we are going to be getting in the near future, I do not think that it is safe to skip this banner. I think that if you have the ability to do so, you want to make sure that you try and at least get these characters, if you can, to Awakening Level 1, so that you can at least, if you're somebody that likes Championship, take them in there and get the full use out of them there, unless, of course, you know, you're afraid that they're going to get banned outright, because they probably are. But Geese is a awesome unit. I love him. I think he's amazing, and I could not recommend him any more highly. Him and Krizalid are pretty much on another level when it comes to their PvE prowess, and I think that they are going to be relevant for a long time to come. So if you are looking for characters that are future-proof, then you don't need to look any further than the Volume 2 Boss Syndrome banner. So that is going to do it, you guys. We have reached the end of our Spotlight series for the Boss Syndrome content. I hope you guys found this informative and enjoyed it. If you are going to still be asking me which one of these characters that you should go for, my recommendation is still the same. These two characters are both so good, it's like splitting hairs. Is it true that I might prefer to use Krizalid on a personal level for most things? Well, yes, but at the same time, these characters complement each other extremely well, because they are both going to be better in certain areas over one another depending on the mode. So really, there isn't a clear-cut winner in this regard. It really just comes down to what you prefer in PvE, or what it is in PvE that you need the help with the most. And honestly, both of these characters are going to be so powerful that you should just consider yourself lucky if you have them. So that's going to be the video today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. You all take care. Peace.
Continue.